Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call to order the June 7th, 2023 Select Board meeting for the town of Nantucket. No changes to the agenda tonight. This Select Board meeting is being audio and video recorded. And I'd like to invite our new District Attorney, Rob Galibois, to the mic to give us an update.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Galibois, and as just mentioned, I am the new district attorney for the Cape and Islands. I really appreciate the time to be able to come in and just give you a little bit of an update of what we've been doing in the office since I took office in January. Today is officially my 5th month and 4th day, so I'm quite excited about that. When I was sworn in on January 4th, my very first order of business was to swear in Jessica Alumba to be our first assistant district attorney. For those of you who may not be familiar in how a DA's office is organized, the first assistant is the person that's in charge of the entire caseload. In our office, we handle approximately 12,000 cases on an annual basis between the 5 district courts, our superior courts, and the juvenile court. And the first assistant is also charged with the responsibility of supervising over our staff of about 65 people. Jess comes to us after about a quarter century, 25 years of experience working in 3 other prosecutors' offices, Bristol County, Plymouth County, and the Attorney General's office. And she has prosecuted, I believe it's 15 first-degree murder cases. So we're very lucky to have someone with her depth of experience leading our office. And why it was such a special moment for me as the new DA, Jess Alumba is the first woman to ever hold that position of first assistant district attorney in the history of the Cape and Islands, which was established back in 1974. And a couple of highlights under Jess's leadership, she installed what's called vertical prosecution. What that is when a defendant comes before the court, the prosecutor that is handling the case at the arraignment, that's the initial appearance, stays with that case all the way through the pre-trials, the motions, the disposition, or a trial. So in those cases where we have victims, you can imagine how beneficial it is where they know from the very outset which prosecutor is going to have their case and carry that case all the way through to the end. Also, under Jess's leadership, we formed an unsolved homicide unit. When I took office, we had 9 unsolved homicides across the Cape and the Islands. Within the first week, we had detectives come into our office with a bundle of files about a homicide that occurred 12 years earlier in 2011. And inside of 2 months, our office, per Jess's leadership, charged 2 people with first-degree murder regarding that homicide that dates back to 2011. And I can let you know, thankfully, we do not have any unsolved homicides here on Nantucket. During the transition period between the election and me being sworn in and carried over a little bit, I went on a tour. I wanted to meet with each of my police chiefs in my district. I have 22 police chiefs inside of my district. And I had a chance to meet with Chief Pittman in his office. He was gracious enough to give me an hour of his time. We talked about such things as, what did you like from the prior administration that you would like my administration to carry over? And what's something that's new that you'd like our administration to try? And we had a really good conversation for about an hour, of which I was most appreciative. And I also just want to add, off the cuff, so to speak, I just left Superintendent Hallett. I met with her and I believe 7 other members of her team. And it was a really good conversation that we're going to be going forward with some things in the fall that you'll be hearing about. We also created a DEI committee in my office. That's a first for the Cape and Islands DA's office. It's led by a woman, Angela Scott Price. She's on the select board in the town of Falmouth. She holds the position of vice chair. We also have on our membership, or on our committee, Tara Vargas Wallace. She is the founder and CEO of an outfit known as Amplify POC, or People of Color. And we have Jean Morrison, who is the president of the Cape and Islands League of Women Voters. We have approximately 8 other people that have expressed an interest in joining our DEI committee. I want to take this time today to announce to the audience and those that may be watching on a computer or TV at home that if you have an interest in joining the Cape and Islands DA's office DEI committee, we are having an organizational meeting on January 29th. It will be in person in our main office in Barnstable. However, we will also be providing a Zoom link as well for those that can't make it to our office. January 9th, or 29th, I'm sorry, 29th.
January.
It's been a long day. I got up at 4:30. June 29th, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Wow.
We
Yes.
call it January around
Yeah.
here.
I mean,
when
we're
it's this
booking
cold.
dates- Yeah, yes. We're booking dates far out, but not that far out. So June 29th at 5:30. And again, if you're interested and can't make it to Barnstable, we will be providing a Zoom link. I'm almost done. I appreciate your time. We are also starting to collect data in our office. This is, again, a first. We will be collecting such information like gender, race, ethnicity, charges, whether or not you're held on bail. And the goal is to be able to produce a report at the end of the year. We'll call it, of course, an annual report. And it's not just going to be for internal purposes. It's going to be produced and disseminated to the public. So all of you will get to see what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we can take feedback from the public to see how we can perhaps improve our performances. And I'd like to end with this. Over the course of about a year running for this office, I would suggest that the single most popular platform issue was a mental health court. During the time that I was running, I explained how all throughout Massachusetts, there's a specialty court session known as the mental health court, except the Cape and the Islands. And about 2-3 weeks ago now, the judge in Barnstable, Judge Julian, announced we will, in fact, be getting a mental health court session in Barnstable by the end of this summer. And for those of you that might be a little unfamiliar with what a mental health court session is, it's a situation where clinicians come right into the courtroom and they work with the struggling defendant to try to identify what is the core issue that brings this person before the court. And as we all know, if you can make that identification, then you can treat that core issue. And when you do so, you reduce the chances of recidivism, making us all safer. So we are quite excited that we were heard. And the judge actually acknowledged that when he made this announcement a few weeks back, that our voices were heard over the campaign and that they are, in fact, going to be using the resources to launch this. Now, this, of course, is going to be on Barnstable. I'm standing here in Nantucket right now. We can transfer cases. So those folks that may meet certain criteria, their matters can be transferred to the Barnstable District Court to take advantage of those particular services. So again, thank you so much for your time. And with your permission, I'd like to come back in about another 6 months with an update, if that's okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you. We
Thank
really
you so much.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good meeting, everybody.
Okay. Okay, any select board announcements or comments? Malcolm or Don? Okay, hearing none. No follow-up comments on from prior select board meetings? that I'm
Nothing
aware
for
of?
me right now.
Okay, thanks, Don. Okay, public comment on for items not on the agenda this evening. Not seeing anyone in the room. No hands raised. Okay. No new business. I'm going to announce that on May 18th, the select board voted unanimously 5-0 an executive session to amend the town manager's contract. This announcement tonight serves to make that part of the public record, and the document will be produced upon request. Okay. Approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts.
I had one, I have one on May 9th, May 23rd on page 9. It was a joint meeting that we had and with the and I said in the discussion, I said this it was the ZBA. I'd like it to say today's discussion doesn't preclude the ZBA requesting special counsel in future if find it is necessary. And that's my quote in the thing. It's not an agreement we made. but I made that clear in that meeting and I want that followed. I've already sent it to Erica. So if we agree, she's already got it.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments about minutes or payroll warrants? I think we should do I'd entertain a motion for approval of minutes, payroll and treasury warrants first, and then we'll go to contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those by, Malcolm, did you
No,
have a
I'm
question?
I have a question on the contracts. I'll wait.
Okay, so we'll take this vote now by roll call. Malcolm McNabb,
Yes, aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
okay, thank you. Matt Fee,
Aye.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, questions on contracts, Malcolm?
I have two questions. On the Arcadis contract, it's a significant amount of increase. I'm not quite sure why that is. Is there a justification for it?
On Arcadis, Vince is here. Do you want to, Vince can, or Libby? Vince?
Good afternoon, Vince Murphy, Natural Resources Department. There's a couple of increases that have happened and a couple of things that have happened over the last year and a half of the contract. We had some delays in time, and in doing quite detailed background research, we found that there's other things to take care of too. So the main thing to note is a 1-year extension to the contract, and there's some things to take care of on that front too, to accommodate the meetings that will be needed over that year's time. The other main thing to take, there's a lot of other things to take into account. The main one is that we had a request from the state to undertake archaeological surveys. We also have to look at other things to do with Pulpus Road bike path, and there's 1 or 2 other things in there as well. But there's a couple of things that came up in doing the research that we now have to account for, including appraisals of homes.
Can we, like, for the archaeological, has that been completed or is that even underway yet?
No, it's not underway. This
Yeah.
will cover the funds for that.
Yeah,
This is funds to fund that.
Right, so at some point, I'd like to have, sort of a little more detail so people understand, because there's some people that are wondering, what is it going to do and why do we need it? And I think, sort of what I've learned is that this is, now that this is less, this is not as cooperative, it's more adversarial, this is going to be more expensive and longer. And I think people have to sort of wrap their heads around that a little bit.
Fair
So,
assessment.
yeah.
I
But
guess,
thank
Madam Chair, if I may continue.
Yes.
I'm sure Vince is probably correct, but sort of out of principle, I may have to abstain from this. I think in the future, when we have significant increases in contracts, we need to have maybe a memo or something ahead of time. So I'm not just sitting here saying, yes, yes. I don't think it's good governance on my part. So I'll abstain from that particular contract. And I would appreciate in the future, with meaningful changes in contracts, that we have a little more information before the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Any other comments?
Is Arcadis due for an update at some point? Probably are, right?
We had a quarterly update the beginning of, was it the end of April or beginning of May? I think it's the end of April.
Right.
I think the next quarterly update is in July. So
Yeah, so we can sort of dig into some of this at that point, I would say.
Yeah, and my understanding, the joint meetings with the Concom were also part of this contract extension or
that was a separate contract extension that happened, I think December or January.
Okay, my
to
mistake.
The NOI, that was a different contract.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the
Sorry,
clarification.
I told Brooke that. Sorry, Vince.
And Madam
Okay.
Chair, I have one other comment on another contract.
Sure.
The increase of $11,000 or whatever it is for the data assessment for the short-term working group. Why is that necessary?
Brian, do you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the short-term rental work group has asked for a substantial amount of additional analysis. That is a result of the first set of analysis, and data review that's been done by Process First. And so we have supported that in an effort to help the short-term rental work group get to a place to be able to make recommendations to the board in anticipation of the November town meeting, special town meeting.
Thank
I
you.
guess if I may continue, what I don't understand is if this data is so important, the short-term working group is already making recommendations. So are they making their recommendations without data or with data?
They're making those with the data that they currently have, and I believe they're continuing to revise them as Process First continues to hopefully be able to push forward with the additional data sets that they're looking for relative to the outcomes from the first pass at the analysis. They're asking for a much deeper dive into the data than what was originally anticipated and requested.
Maybe it's my negligence, but has that data been made public of what they've done so far?
I have not participated in any of the short-term rental work group meetings or anything, so I can't speak to whether it's been made public or not.
So again, I'm in a situation where I'm going to have to vote for an increase where I really don't know why we need an increase other than just we need more data. And I don't know what more data they need. So I'm in a bind here.
Those meetings have been held publicly and the conversations have been held publicly. So.
Okay.
I mean, if there's a specific question, I guess, about the contract.
Do you have a question about a contract?
Yes.
Okay,
Question relates to the.
please identify
I'm sorry,
yourself.
Bruce Mandel Manicat.
Thanks.
My question is about the current discussion by Select Board Member McNabb. It's my understanding that the short-term work group sunsets before the end of this month, according to their very own schedule. So like Malcolm, I'm a little befuddled about why we need to spend more money on a committee whose work is sunsetting. And by their own acknowledgement, their work unfortunately is not totally complete. And they would like to continue their work independently, not as a work group, because their work group is sunsetting. So I just don't understand why there needs to be an extension at this time to gather more information. Their recommendations have already been sent to the planning board for the meeting this week. And their schedule just calls for this whole process to end before the end of the month. Thank you.
Yeah,
Matt?
I watched a little bit of the meeting. I can answer a couple of questions, I think. Is the NARAB data is on the way to being given to them, and that will be processed by Process First. That'll be added to the existing data they have. So they need to do that. There was also a discussion in the meeting of preliminary data that they had done that they presented yesterday that still needs to be cleaned up and handed over. Some of it is going to be backing up and explaining some of the suggestions that they're making for town meetings so people can understand why they're doing what they're doing. I think it was, if they, and I agree they were supposed to be done in a month, they might be, but it could also be that we extend it. And later when we talk about the special town meeting, I'm going to also talk about, is there companion articles or anything else we need to do as a board and what we should be thinking about. So there's, I think, a few reasons that this is necessary. If we want to do as good a job as possible and bring something that pretty much 80–90% of people can agree on and pass. So I think it's important.
Yes, well, thank you very much for that explanation. In our discussions with Matt Heffernan from Process First, they also would like their contract extended in order to complete some of the open issues.
Right.
However, the comment that you may extend the work of the short-term work group committee, that's speculative and it hasn't happened yet. Their contract is over, as is CGI's. So why are we throwing more money at a contract that is closed and completed? Not that I don't think it's a worthy expenditure. Matt's very creative and has given us a lot of information, but the work is over.
Bruce, did you have a comment on this?
Madam Chair, no, I have another contract
Okay.
question. Burton Balkine.
Can you hold on just a second?
Oh, yeah,
please?
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to make sure it wasn't on this. I'd like to comment on this, that the process has been iterative. The data informs and produces more questions. And I think that that's what's happened, is that the preliminary data informed further and deeper questions that needed more work than it was originally in the original scope of the contract. And that's how I understand it. And that the work group is refining, getting feedback from the planning board, getting feedback from the community, and refining further. And the questions that come to them then might need further data analytics to answer them. So that's the iterative nature of the process. And I think Tom's shaking his head. He serves on the short-term rental work group. Hopefully I've captured that correctly. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the Arcadis contract.
Could you just identify your name for the record?
I'm Burton
please?
Balkine.
Thank you.
I have a question about the original Arcadis contract for over 600,000. Do we know of what tasks have been completed in that contract before we're awarding on an extension to that?
Vince?
Because of Vince Murphy, Natural Resources Department, because of several delays that were incurred as part of trying to undertake route selection, several tasks were put on hold. So we got roughly about a third of the way into that previous amount of money, roughly speaking. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. And what we're actually here to talk about tonight is the additional items that are being added on that have come up as we have undertaken work within the last year, and try to understand where we stand with, say, archaeological things, household appraisals of homes, and potential increases to how that is going to work. Pulpus bike path and some legal questions that are over that. And the biggest one that I forgot to mention in my first mention was an emergency readiness plan in case Baxter Road breaches before we get any of this construction in place. There's also subtasks on permitting so that we can get all of the required permits in place, including ones with Mass Historic Commission, which weren't in the initial contract because we didn't have archaeological surveys as part of that, because we didn't think they were needed at the time, and that has since changed. So that the archaeological one is by far one of the largest increases.
Madam Chair, through you. So if I'm understanding Vince correctly, the additional money is not to complete tasks that are in the original contract. These are to complete tasks that have come up since the contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to clear that up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there aren't any further questions or comments from the board or the community, I'd like to just make a comment that when we last voted on the contract for Process First, I recused myself. I've since supplied a disclosure that I do have a business relationship through a nonprofit that I'm on the board of with Process First, but there's no financial benefit to me. So I feel comfortable voting on that. So I just wanted to say that.
Doesn't Tom also have a need to recuse? He's on the short-term work group. And the contract is set to extend till December 31st here.
That's up to him.
If
That's just a question because.
Madam Chair, I did discuss this with town council, and town council said that he looked at the charter, and there was no issue with me staying on the short-term rental work group and being on the select board at the same time. And
okay, all right, great. So all of that said, is there a motion?
Move approval.
second,
All those in favor by roll call, Don Holgate,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
I'm abstaining to the Arcardis contract and voting against the
Okay, so,
process.
okay, so,
So I know how you want to do it.
okay. Perhaps just abstaining from all of them, or should we take would you prefer that we take the process first contract separately because you'd like to vote against it?
I'd like to vote against it and I'd like to abstain from the other and I'd like to vote in favor of the others.
Okay, so,
Right.
okay, that's good.
And I'll
Okay.
amend my motion to reflect his.
Okay, and is that okay with you as a second?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Tom Dixon,
Aye.
I've forgotten who I've asked. Matt Fee,
Aye,
and I vote aye. Okay,
you got everybody.
all right, good. All right. Okay, gift acceptances. Tom, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have three potential gift acceptances. The first one is from Human Services, a gift of $150 from Penny Starr for Saltmarsh Senior Center. The second one is a gift of $150 from Priscilla Roosevelt for Saltmarsh Senior Center. And the third is Natural Resource Department, a gift of $157 from Proud Pour Inc. for Shellfish Hatchery. I'd like to make a motion to approve the gift acceptances and ask town administration to send a letter of thanks to each of them.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Great.
Don, you sound like you're miles and miles away tonight.
Okay, Erica, we're moving on to applicant introduction. review
I'm
of
miles,
applications.
I'm about 30 miles away in Hyannis.
Erica?
And I'm in Savannah, Georgia. So
Thank you. So I'm just going to go ahead and just read through all the applicants one more time for the record, and then we'll open it up for comments from applicants who are present. So Agricultural Commission, we have 2 seats available and 1 applicant, Jacob Tinkhauser. Airport Commission, we have 2 seats available and 3 applicants, Anthony Buscarin, Robert Curry, and Arthur Gasparo. Board of Health, we have 2 seats available and 3 applicants, Ann Smith, Maureen Marklinger, and Meredith Lepre. Capital Program Committee, we have 2 seats available and 2 applicants, Howard Matz and Christy Kickham. Cemetery Commission, we have 2 seats available and 1 applicant, Scotty McIver. I will note that Alan Reinhardt, who is currently on the committee, applied late and will take his into round 2. Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, 1 seat available, 1 applicant, Doug Rose. Conservation Commission, 2 seats available with 5 applicants, Tim Brain, Mark Beal, Ashley Erisman, Bo Wilson, and Marcia Brown. Contract Review Subcommittee, 1 seat available with 1 applicant, Linda Williams. Council for Human Services, 3 seats available and 0 applicants, but one of our incumbents did apply late, so she'll be considered in round 2. Council on Aging, 3 seats available and 2 applicants, Rocky Fox and Marianne Easley. Cultural Council, 4 seats available and 2 applicants, Michael Kopko and Emma Young. Finance Committee, 3 seats available and 6 applicants, Howard Matz, Joseph Wright, Joseph Plandowski, Rob Giacchetti, Denise Cronow, and Joanna Roach. Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, 1 seat available and 0 applicants, but we did get 1 late, which will be considered in round 2. Historic District Commission Associate, 1 seat available and 3 applicants, Howard Matz, Joseph Robert Paul, and Jesse Dutra. There was some confusion last time we met, the way I had things listed, so they are now correct. Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust, we have 1 seat available and 2 applicants, Meg Browers and David Gray. And then the Nantucket Historical Commission, 2 seats available and 5 applicants, Rita Carr, Linda Williams, George Butterworth, Ethan McMorrow, and Joe Bedell. And I did double check with Joe, and this is the committee he wanted. Planning Board alternate, 1 seat available and 2 applicants, Howard Matz and Stephen Welch. Real Estate Assessment Committee, 2 seats available and 0 applicants, although I did get 1 late from a new person. Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, 3 seats available and 3 applicants, Lee Saperstein, Nat Lowell, and Phil Smith. Scholarship Committee, 2 seats available and 3 applicants, Rocky Fox, Melissa McVicker, and Jana Duarte. Steamship Authority Port Council, 1 seat available and 1 applicant, Nat Lowell. Tree Advisory Committee, 3 seats available and 0 applicants. I did get 1 applicant that applied late, so he'll be considered in round 2, and I got another application from another community member. Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 seat available, 1 applicant, Joe Marklinger. And then Zoning Board of Appeals alternate, 2 seats available and 1 applicant, that's Mark Poor. I will note that the current incumbent of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Lisa Botticelli, did apply late, and she's going to put her name in for consideration for that second alternate seat. I guess we can start to see if anybody is here from Agricultural Commission. I'm not sure if Jacob is. Oh, good.
Hi, I'm Jacob Tinkhauser. I've come to Nantucket for 30 years. I've lived here for 2.
Jacob, can you come right up to the mic? Sometimes it doesn't pick you
Is
up.
that better?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacob Tinkhauser. I've come to Nantucket for 30 years and I've lived here for 2. I think agriculture is incredibly important to the island, has a very long history here. It provides open space, high quality produce, employment, and educational opportunities. Unfortunately, the combination of high labor costs and land costs is causing it to become endangered. On the Agricultural Commission, I'd work with groups like Land Bank and Sustainable Nantucket, who have spearheaded efforts to preserve agriculture, and see if there's a survey of agricultural properties on the island, to review it, to update it, and to see if there are properties in danger of development, to then develop a plan to see if some of these properties can be preserved. I'd also work with farmers who may be too busy to share their views and bring their views to town government. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from Agricultural?
That's it.
That's one. Okay. Next.
Airport Commission, is Tony Buscarin here? Come on down to the mic.
Evening, Tony Buscarin. I was appointed to the Airport Commission in 2013 and have been on the commission since then. I have a single multi-engine commercial instrument ticket, pilot's license, Navy pilot, practiced aviation law for 30 years in New York. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Eric?
We have Art Gasparo online and he has to go to a thing, so I'm going to put him up first real quick.
Okay, good.
Art, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Arthur Gasparo. I'm the current chair of the Airport Commission, and I would very much appreciate your support for another term to see through some of the projects that we're working on. And I enjoy the position and giving back to the community, and would like to continue to do so for one more term. Thank you. If any questions you might have, I'd be happy to address.
No questions. Thank you.
Robert Curry.
Rob Curry. I've lived on Nantucket for my entire life, minus a few winters. And I have run a resort business, Cliffside Beach Club, for over 30 years. So there's some interest in hospitality and customer service I think I could bring to the table. I'm also an instrument rated pilot. I'm not a Navy pilot, so I think my credentials have been trumped there, but I am a pilot, have my airplane at the airport, and have had a passion for aviation for a long time. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board of Health, we have Ann Smith here.
Hi. I'm glad to be here. I have been here before. And I am applying for one of the seats on the Board of Health. I thought it might be helpful if you got to know me maybe a little better than you had in the past. And I just want to say that Nantucket and I have a very long history. My grandparents came in the 1920s. My parents and my in-laws have had houses here since the 50s. I met my husband here. Some of you in this room had Kit Smith for 5th grade. She was my mother-in-law. I know specifically Matt Fee had her because she used to talk about him in a good way, in a very.
I got in a little trouble too, I believe. You don't have
Anyway,
to lie.
I've been on Nantucket every year of my life, and I have been a year-round resident for 7 years. Professionally, I'm a nurse midwife and a women's health nurse practitioner. I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Cornell and a Master's of Science from Columbia. And I actually started my journey in healthcare as a candy striper at Nantucket Cottage Hospital. It was sort of that experience, believe it or not, that made me think that I might want to be a nurse. Anyway, I've been in the OR, I've been in labor and delivery, I've been on the floors, I've been in infectious disease, and I became a nurse midwife. I've delivered many babies and realized that anything in this area has to involve the entire family. And so for the last 10 years, I've concentrated my professional focus on mental health, specifically perinatal mental health and postpartum depression. I've been honored to serve as the president of Postpartum Support International, the leading organization devoted to educating, training, and getting help for women who are struggling and their families. And I'm currently serving as the advisor to the Cape and Islands Mental Wellness, used to be called Postpartum Depression Task Force. So what I really want to say is that giving back is very important to me, especially at this point in my career and my life. I am the vice chair of Fair Winds. Through that, I have been made very aware of an extremely needy population that we have on this island that some people know nothing about. And the same thing has made me aware through the St. Paul's Church outreach Wednesday supper programs, where my husband and I have delivered all over the island and have seen things that are really quite remarkable. Living conditions, circumstances that many of our neighbors are in. And I think that of all of the committees that I could be on for the town, the Board of Health makes the most sense to my career and my background. And there's a funny thing about healthcare, particularly nowadays. It's we talk about evidence-based medicine. And evidence-based medicine means you do what the studies say. You do what the evidence tells you to do. You don't do what somebody has done before or what has always been done at this particular hospital or this particular whatever. And I just want to say that if I am selected to be on the Board of Health, I think I know that I will be able to bring evidence-based practices and not prejudicial practices because somebody I ran into thought that that would be a good idea. I think that evidence-based is definitely the way to go. So thank you, and I hope I will be selected.
Thank you.
Is Maureen Marklinger here? No. And Mary Lepre is unable to come tonight. She's going to try to come next week.
Okay.
Capital Program Committee, Howard Matz. And I don't see him online. Christy Kickham. Not here. Cemetery Commission, Scotty McIver, he was unable to come tonight. He's working. Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, Doug Rose is online, so I'm going to bring him in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And sorry, my camera's not working. I don't really look like that, but close enough, I guess. I think I've met a few of you in person, others in virtual terms. But anyway, my name is Doug Rose. I'm a seasonal resident, been involved with Nantucket without ever engaging in any kind of governmental organization. I've never been a member of a committee or a board or anything like that, but I have been craving a way to contribute. And since the inception of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, I've been an avid follower of that group and a real admirer of their work, both the work of the committee as well as the staff supporting it, Vince and Leah from the NRD. And I feel like it's the kind of opportunity that I've been looking for. It's a way for me to kind of dive in and hopefully make a contribution. My background is I had a career as a marketing communications and data analytics professional. I'm now retired, so I'm kind of craving an opportunity to dive into things that are of interest to me. And this committee in particular appeals to me because of the critical importance of its mission, which is to help advise the select board on smart ways to not only make the island more resilient, but in so doing, also look for ways to preserve and restore, and maybe even make the island a little bit better. So that's a little bit about me. And I hope you'll vote for me. And if you do, I'd be proud to serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, Conservation Commission, is Tim Brain here? And Mark Beal. Ashley Arisman is here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Arisman. I know most of you. I am here to reapply for the Conservation Commission. I've served the last 9 years on the commission. The past 4, I've been appointed as chair. I think I'm well suited for the commission. My education, my master's background focused on water resource management, taking master's level courses in wetlands, advanced ecology, global water issues. I also grew up on Nantucket and have lived here most of my life. So I think that gives me good perspective into the changing resource areas, changing development pressures that have happened over time, and what Nantucket needs to do to be sustainable into the future. So I hope you will consider reappointing me.
Should I ask questions now if it's the time, or?
Yeah.
I have questions for all the Concom members. 2 questions. The one first is, what are your thoughts on the proposed amendments to the regulations that are under consideration? And do you support them, and why? And if you don't support them, or don't support some of them, why not? And then the second one is, what has the Concom and Select Board done right regarding Baxter Road and that whole situation? And what have we either done wrong and can learn from? And how do you envision or suggest that we reunite the town to move forward cooperatively with all the parties in that situation? And I know they're hard, but just a concise answer as you can. And I'd like to ask to all 5 over the course of this.
Before you answer, actually, may I make a suggestion, Matt?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Would you be comfortable submitting these in writing to the applicants, because not everyone is going to come?
Right.
And I don't know,
Yeah.
Would that make more sense? It's a lot.
It would, but I also think it's important if people are here to,
okay,
and they're comfortable speaking up. I can type these up and submit them, but at the same time, I think it's, anyway, I'm trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll try and be as concise as possible and try not to tread on current commission issues that are up in front of the public, but I am supportive of our regulations update. We haven't updated our regulations since 2013, before I was even on the commission, and we've tried since the last chair get the ball rolling here. So it's an important step. I mean, you should really be updating these things at least every decade. You know, now we're getting out of that. I'm in support of the majority of the amendments. They're much more than maybe the summaries that have been passed around. We've had 3 meetings within the last 8 months as a commission to go through, you know, our entire document of regulations. But if you're talking about things like changes to proposed buffer areas and things of that nature, which I know are hot topics, you know, I am in support of greater protections for our wetland resources in the face of development, although that might be difficult for some. You know, Nantucket has a sole source aquifer. That means we have one water source for the entire island. If it's polluted, the closest water source is Cape Cod. Our wetlands help filter surface water to become clean drinking water. And if we don't have intact buffer zones, we can't protect those critical functions of our wetlands. There's also lots of habitat value that goes into that. I know another one is pools in the flood zone. You know, I've followed along with the coastal resiliency plan and things we need to do to be resilient on island. So updating our regulations to reflect greater resiliency, I think is very important. Although, again, I realize that will be difficult for people to adjust to. As far as, you know, Sconset Bluff and Baxter Road, I think, you know, we've had some great work groups between the Select Board and the Conservation Commission. It has been difficult at times because our purviews are slightly different. Again, we're focused on resource area protection. You guys have a more holistic, you know, outlook. But I think the meetings we had over the winter were very productive and will hopefully get ideas kind of put forth not only for that area, but that can be used in other areas of Nantucket too, kind of thinking on a greater scale. I think those were beneficial. You know, and I think lessons learned, we're all busy people, but sometimes when issues come up, we need to address them right away. And sometimes I think both groups have not addressed things right away, and that's gotten us in trouble. So I think that's as concise as I can be in answering the questions, but you guys have my information if you want to reach out with further questions.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Next we have Bill Wilson.
Good evening, Select Board members. Bo Wilson, appearing before you as an applicant for the Conservation Commission. In terms of a very little background, in terms of a very little background about myself, I'm 58 years old. I came to Nantucket for the first time in 1972. My family owned a house on 8 Pleasant Street until the late 80s. I went to the Hill School in Potsdam, Pennsylvania, and Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland. I moved to the island on a year-round basis in the summer of 1984. I am married to a native and have 4 children ages 28 to 17, all born in and/or raised on Nantucket. I have been involved in residential and commercial construction since grade school, as it was a family business in the mainland of Philadelphia, Dover, Delaware, and on the eastern shore of Maryland. I tested for and received my unrestricted construction supervisor's license in 1988, and shortly thereafter started my own construction business. I had been before multiple town boards and commissions during my tenure here. I built several houses on both sides of Hulbert Avenue, a house on pilings in the beach in Coppish Park, a seawall in Monomoy, and many homes within the jurisdiction of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Conservation Commission, and the DEP. I believe I can offer my experience in construction to assist in the application process. I will provide an unbiased, impartial review of each submission and a cordial and focused desire to understand each applicant's case and how it relates to the regulations. I'll provide a common sense approach to working with each applicant and not be swayed by alternate interests. Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Would you want me to repeat the questions?
Please.
I'll give you the short version. What do you think of the regulations currently under consideration?
I think all regulations need to be updated periodically, and I think it's been a long time since they have been updated.
Do you support the regulations as they're updating them now? Do you think?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other one was, what was the Concom? What did we do right? What did we do wrong in Baxter? You know, select board, Concom, and how would you hope to bring sort of a bigger vision, bring us together on that?
I hold no pros or cons on either respect of who's right or wrong. I think that we all need to work together for a common goal. I view it impartially and take all the information that I can get and make an educated decision based on that. I hope to move forward as a group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia Brown is unable to come. She's going to come next week.
Okay.
Contract Review Committee, Linda Williams.
Good evening. I don't think I have to really introduce myself at this point. I've been on the contract review for a while. This is my re-up time, and I was on it a couple of times over the last 30 years, I think. And it's a very good group. We're an incredibly dedicated group to human services and furthering human services in this community. We give grants every year, which have been very productive. And now we have the other $175,000 that was given to us at town meeting for substance misuse from ages from 0 to 25. So we're in the process now of doing RFPs and requests for information first or interest first. So I think it's a very, very active and very dedicated group, and I'd like to continue to serve. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
No applicants for Council for Human Services, Council on Aging, Rocky Fox, but he is not here tonight. Mary Ann Easley.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Easley. I have served 2 terms on the Council on Aging, currently the chair. And I hope you'll approve me for a 3rd term. I'm a senior, so I care a lot about the services for seniors on Nantucket. And I think we've had some recent successes applying for and getting grants. The most recent one was to install grab bars and railings inside and outside seniors' homes here on Nantucket so that they would have a safer environment to live in. So I hope to continue to serve on the council and continue to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Cultural Council, I don't see Michael Kopko or Emma Young anywhere. Finance Committee, Howard Matz, Joseph Wright. No. Oh, Joseph Wright's going to come next week. Joseph Plandowski.
My name is Joe Plandowski, and I'm applying for a position on the Finance Committee. I first came to Nantucket 45 years ago and have been here every year since. First couple of years, we rented a house for a few weeks vacation. Then the next 25 years, we owned a timeshare in the Brand Point area. 15 years ago, we bought a house mid-island. The first 10 of the 15 years, we were here for half a year. The last 5 years, we're full-time residents of Nantucket. I think my educational background would be helpful to the Finance Committee. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in business administration from the State University of New York. Also, when I was in New York State, I was a licensed professional engineer. My work experience, I think, also would be suitable for the Finance Committee. I've managed large and small companies in the US and Canada, ranging from a few $1 million in revenues to $400 million. I've spent a fair amount of time volunteering. For example, I was a Boy Scout adult leader for 10 years. I was a U.S. swimming official for 15 years. I'm on the town's cannabis committee and also on the Conservation Commission. And with that, my goal for the Finance Committee is to do what's right for the taxpayers of Nantucket. And I request your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions on the Conservation Commission?
It wouldn't be.
No, it would be only for new applicants.
I would just open it up to see if anybody else wants to speak on their applications that are here tonight for any other applications from H to Z. I know Linda Williams is here. She could speak on the Historical Commission, and Lee Saperstein for Roads and Right of Way.
Please here.
Madam Chair, as Erica suggested, I'm Lee Saperstein and a candidate for reappointment to the Committee on Roads and Right of Way. I'd like to thank the Select Board and Erica for allowing me to speak out of turn. I'll be traveling next week for a very significant, at least to me, collegiate reunion, and I just won't be here. And so to be able to talk today about things that excite me within the Committee on Roads and Right of Way and share them with you. I am aware that it's an uncontested election, so let me be very brief. I was listening to people talk about their bios, and I've got one like this, but there's no need. What is significant are some of the things that we're working on in the Committee on Roads and Right of Way. I'm not going to, I think there's 5 or 6 items I put in my application, but the significant one is public access. And there are 2 subparts to that. We are and have done marking public ways, particularly to the beach, but also other significant public ways. The granite markers, we've put a lot of them in the ground. We've got a few more to put. I think the thing that we need to do next is upgrade the master chart that's on our website so that people can find these ways, and then to work with the DPW to make sure they're maintained. The other subpart of public access are the large issues of Chapter 91 licenses. They were discussed yesterday in the Harbor Plan Update open meeting. And I think Roads and Right of Way has a lot to contribute to that discussion. And then a favorite little topic of mine is called the Nantucket Railroad. The railroad began on Steamboat Wharf. And so when we talk about the potential for putting up guidance or signage that explains the railroad, it's the Steamship Authority, it's the town, it's 2 or 3 of our conservation groups, because the railroad crosses it crosses the airport, it crosses land bank land, Conservation Foundation land. And it would be nice to at least put up a few signs, perhaps with a QR code saying from 1878 till 1918, there was a railroad on this route. So I thank you for your time. I enjoy it, and I hope to carry on. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Lee, for informing us on what that group does. Hopefully there'll be more interest.
Ms. Williams is going to wait till next week.
Okay. So I'd like to, unless the other select board members have a comment, I'd just like to express my gratitude to everyone who has taken the time to apply and express interest in serving in our town government. We can't do it without you. And this board relies a lot on the work that happens at the committee and board level, and information filters up to us to make decisions. And that's really important work. And I want to thank everyone. And I want to remind those who were on this list tonight to come speak. If they were unable to be here, they're welcome to let Erica know that that they want to come next week instead. So thank you very much, everybody.
And just a reminder too, that all appointments will be made on the 28th.
Town managers report, public works facility site evaluation update.
So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on this and introduce our people who are going to be going over the presentation. This project has been underway since at least 2016. The DPW facility has an appropriation for design, and that work began following the appropriation that was made at annual town meeting, probably within the year or so after that. And then the coastal resiliency plan came along and raised some concerns about whether or not the DPW should actually be located at the 188 Nantucket road site. So we took a kind of a little bit of a turn to evaluate other sites, including a site at the Delta Fields, which is under the jurisdiction of the airport, and a town-owned site out on Shadbush Road, which is under consideration for lease to the Nantucket Hunting Association. And that is another initiative that's been going on for probably 20 years, just about. So we came to the board in, I think it was August 2021-ish, and gave you all an update of where we were with facilities planning. And this was one of the projects that we brought to you. And in the reviewing of, in the evaluating of these sites, we also, as you know, realized that our appropriation article for design of a new facility specified 188 Nantucket Road. So at this past town meeting, we changed that description. And we have met with the airport a couple of times about the Delta site, and we are aware that under FAA requirements, the town would need to be charged fair market value in rent annually for use of the site. We are, of course, well aware that the Hunting Association has been in their planning process for many, many years and has really settled on this site. However, we need a new DPW facility. It is a critical part of the town's infrastructure. It is in very poor condition right now. Our employees have been working in substandard conditions, and that may be partially why we have trouble hiring staff at DPW. In any event, we have Jamie Fair and Colleen Kennedy of Weston and Sampson. They've been working on the design. We also have, and the evaluation, more specifically, because we had that under consideration. And we have Kelly Cardoza of Avalon Consulting. Kelly is our endangered species consultant and has been very, very helpful with permitting and mitigation possibilities if there are endangered species. And I will just remind you all that about a year ago, almost, we were concerned that there might be endangered species at the Delta site, which would have had a serious financial and other impacts on putting the DPW facility there. So we were basically, that necessitated a look at other town-owned properties, including the Shadbush site. So that is how we ended up re-looking at that. And it then came to light after the endangered species survey was completely finished that the mitigation possibilities weren't as bad as initially feared. However, we do have the rent issue. So there's issues with every one of these sites. But again, we can't leave it where it is in the condition that it's in, and we need to figure this out. So we're not really asking you to make a decision tonight, I don't think, but we want to provide you where we are with our evaluation of the site. So if it's okay, I would turn it over to Jamie and Colleen with input from Kelly as needed.
Thank you, Libby. We have a presentation here, and was going to do a brief overview of an update of our assessment. So the first slide here, it shows the three major sites on the island. As Libby mentioned, we have the existing facility at Nantucket Road. We're also looking at the Sun Island Road property at Delta Fields and the Shadbush Road site. Next slide, please. And this is a flood map, projected out to 2070 using the Massachusetts coastal flood risk models. And so you can see here that 188 Nantucket Road is within an area that's going to see significant flooding come 2070, and that kind of increases as time goes on based on these projections. And the advantage to the Sun Island and the Shadbush Road sites is they're more in higher elevation areas and in a more central location which would, help with the overall operations and accessibility for the public works. Next slide, please. What this slide shows is this is the Nantucket Road site, and the area that's highlighted in yellow is the is Nantucket Road and the access road to the existing DPW, and then there's two driveways that enter in. It's hard to see here, and it'll be more clear in future slides, but in general, the flood elevations that are projected in 2070 go up to about elevation 14, and the existing grades at the site, round numbers, are at about 10. And the access road in that area out in front of the DPW is also, it ranges from around, I'm going to say like 6 to 10 feet. And so that area in yellow would all need to be raised up to an elevation of 14 along with the bulk of the site, which is, be on average over 4 feet of fill over a very large area. And if you go to the next slide, it'll kind of show that a little more clearly. So the areas in blue would be areas that would be filled in and raised to get the site and the access road up and out of the projected floodplain in 2070. And that's going to basically come at a cost. And I'm going to talk about costs a little bit later in the presentation. So that gives you a sense of the areas to be filled. And that's fine. Next slide is, please. Yep. And then this is a test fit of the proposed new DPW on how that it could look at the Nantucket Road site. So we certainly, it could fit and work here, but we have the flood challenges that we're discussing. Next slide. And so then
can we comment on Nantucket while we're on it, or do you want to do it all and then comment?
No, that's fine. Yeah, please chime in.
Yeah, if we go back to the 14-foot slide, the blue slide, this slide is the reason I've been pushing so hard for us to have long-term vision and to move everything from Nantucket in the relatively short to medium term. 14 feet, we're raising the road 14 feet. We're raising the entire site 14 feet. It's a low-lying wetland, a storm tide pathway. 50 or 100 years, end of my kids' lives, it will, the water will be lapping up against this. So I think, this makes the point better than I have been able to make it over the last 4 or 5 years. So thank you for the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. So
Go ahead, Jamie.
up. Okay. And then, moving to Sun Island. This is an overview of the area showing the Delta fields. And so sort of that blue outline is we would have an access road constructed off of Milestone Road that would then go down to that lower rectangular area located, right to the left of the boat yard storage. And the next slide will show this in a little more detail. So this is the existing ball field area that would be impacted a little bit with the addition of the access road on the right side of the slide there. We could put the access road in and then relocate the ball fields within the disturbed area to minimize disturbing any of the other wooded and brushed areas surrounding it, because those areas are endangered species habitats that we want to maintain as much as practical. So this scenario we're looking at has minimal impact to the endangered species areas. And the next slide, this is zoomed in, and so this would show how the DPW could fit and work here on the Sun Island Road property with main access from Milestone Road, and the traffic on Sun Island would be very minimal. It would just be for visitors, and it's there's not a lot of visitors that would be coming here. It's mostly the employees and the workers coming in and out using the new access road heading up the north side of the layout plan here. So that shows how, in general terms, the DPW would fit and work here on this property. And then the next slide. And this is a little hard to read, and so yeah, if you could zoom in, that would be great. This is sort of a simplified analysis of looking at the costs the extra costs associated with developing at each property. And so this does not take into account the cost of the building because that's essentially equal. And so just as a very high level, I'll call it broad brush view of what it would look like from a cost standpoint. On the left column, we have the Nantucket road site, and let's touch on the numbers briefly. About $3.2 million to raise up the site itself. About 40,000 cubic yards of fill would need to be brought in there to get it up to that elevation 14 that I had mentioned, and then also raising the access road about another 9,000 cubic yards, so about another $3 million. And these are high level numbers, but they were, we used the elevation data that we had to use an independent cost estimator to help come up with these numbers. So we think, from a high level standpoint that we're in pretty good shape. And then there's also the two $500,000 dollars. Yeah, maybe if you stay right there, that would be helpful. Thank you. The $500,000 allowance would be for some wetlands mitigation because we're near wetlands. There's also some likely contamination on site with the history, about another 500 there, and then relocating the DPW because we'd be building at the current facilities. We would need to come up with some temporary facilities on island, so we have about $1 million allowance for that. And so round numbers about 8.4 million for Nantucket, and then Sun Island. We don't have the site issues, the raising. We do have the reconfiguration of the ball fields. That would be the $1 million number, and then the big fees would be the leasing. And so this calculation that we're looking at is just a sort of does not take into consideration inflation or a discount rate on the money. It's just a straight total analysis of the annual lease projected out over the lease term. And so for Sun Island Road, at a lease rate of $1.03 per square foot per year, we're at about $12.9 million from out to the year 2070. For this analysis, we're assuming that if we're moving out of Nantucket, that the town could in turn turn around and lease that property to another party. And we discounted that due to the location at 75 cents a square foot, and we only project out to 2050 because of the projected flood issues. And so if those assumptions hold true, we're looking at about $5.5 million. And in this case, we're offsetting it from the $12 million payment, for a net of about $7 million. And so when you add up all of the numbers in the Sun Island column, it's really about the same number. At the end of the day, 8.3, 8.4. To be honest, these are pretty high level numbers. So essentially, it's the same cost using, these assumptions. We also, we haven't submitted it yet, but we did a more detailed analysis that takes into account inflation and it also takes into account a discount rate for the use of that money over the long term, and actually starts tipping the scales more towards Nantucket when you get into that level of analysis. But I think for the purposes of this discussion, right here, we're looking at about the same costs, and there are plenty of assumptions here that we could, talk about in more detail if folks would like, or maybe in a separate meeting. But for now, I just leave it at that with this table, and then I can move into Shadbush. There's some promising layout, I think, there at Shadbush that is worth looking at.
Before we leave this one, please, it's
Yeah,
Matt
sure.
again. Why not access the Sun Island off of Sun Island Road? Why the long additional road and taking
Sure.
away ball fields?
Yep. No, that's a good question. There was a lot of concern expressed with the truck traffic coming down Sun Island Road, given the width of that road and the residences and properties located there. And so that was the reason why we were coming in from Milestone Road.
All right. Yeah. All right.
That's something that could be looked at further, but yeah.
It's okay for them, but it's not okay for the town. I get it, but
Okay.
I think that would be one thing I'd say. And then I think the key thing for us to think about on this is are there swaps we could do with the airport? The town gave all the land to the airport originally. As it mentions here, some of this is titled in town name, would have to be researched. There's a lot of work to do there. If this or some version of this is what we're doing, I think, airport customers and airport employees and people who fly planes need to have the garbage, et cetera, taken care of too. So we should be working together, and I hope that we could find a way to do that. So if there's a way to finagle it, I just, the whole idea of renting something that we gave away bugs me. So anyway, keep going.
Yeah, sure.
If I may, this contemplates lease payments through 2070, but they continue after that, right?
Yep.
So this is just.
That's correct.
A medium-term analysis, but
But
not.
we may have
long-term.
land, we may have land that is desirable to them. There may be things that need to be cleaned up, that this or another airport site could be part of. I think we need a little creativity here to make this work. And I think the Mid-Island is a better location for this central purpose than going down the thin Nantucket Road into what is going to be wetlands. And I think, it's centrally located. It's better for all the haulers. It's better for all the citizens. I think it's, we've got to find somewhere out here. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And this is a test fit that we did for the Shadbush Road property, sort of on the left-hand side with the colored blocks. That would be the DPW portion of the site. And so we could fit that in there. There's some plantings further over to the west that we're respecting, which explains the setback from the property line at that point. And then over on the east side, we would have the firing range components where we have the sign with the shot curtain, that sort of fan looking shaft right there. That would be the trap shooting area. And we're able to compress the footprint of that shooting area using a shot curtain. I'll show you a photo of that in a moment. So it's taking up less space than the original layout. And then also, further to the south and to the east, we have the various firing range buildings and an archery range. So that's how that could look. And then if we go to the next slide, and that's the shot curtain that we're talking about. So this has been used in many other firing ranges. I will say we're still at a very high level, just concept looks at how this could fit and work on the site. And so with the use of the shot shield, it kind of, prevents any shot from traveling past that curtain area. And, looking into this, the traps, they don't fire nearly as far as that curtain. And there's certain types of shot that can be used, for safety purposes to make sure that it all works properly within this context. With that, we see this as a viable option. I know the Hunting Association has been working on this for a long time, and certainly this warrants more discussions with all the folks that are involved. But I will say, some of the advantages of building here at Shadbush is we don't have the leasing fees that we were looking at with the airport property. There is an endangered species mitigation that is going to be needed. The Hunting Association, went through, but never really finalized a permitting process and assessed that the basic approach that they had established, and it looked like it was all going to work. We would have to revisit that, and so there'd be more work to be done to address the mitigation issues. And I'll let Kelly Cardoza speak in a moment, but she can kind of talk to some of the mitigation options in a little more detail. But some other things that are beneficial with this site is we are an industrial area. So, you'd have a public works facility, in a more industrial area, not adjacent to a ball field use. And it's also not in the drinking water protection overlay district, which Sun Island is in that protection area. Some disadvantages is, there isn't a public water supply, so we'd have to do a water supply well, which I understand would be feasible. And there would be some upgrades needed to the access road, getting to this property. It's a sort of a gravel road now for a good portion. So we need to do that as well. So this is just a brief overview of some advantages and disadvantages here with this property. And perhaps Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, if you would, speaking to the endangered species component.
We know from the Hunting Association analysis that they prepared that it's a Lepidoptera site, so it's moths. It will require a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio. And with the plan that the Hunting Association had, they were able to provide the development and the mitigation area all within the 27 acres of this site. With the development that's shown here, we would need some kind of off-site mitigation. That could either be land, and that is Natural Heritage's preferred option, that they would be protection of other lands on the island, or as has happened with some recent projects, they're willing to address or accept some offsite mitigation funding options. But I will say that funding option can only be used after you've exercised, a full analysis of all the other land options that you might have.
Thank you, Kelly.
Any questions from the board?
Just to comment on this last, I think this is the best location. I think it's the best choice. If we, knowing what we know now, maybe something will change. I think it should, long-term, it should include everything. So if we have to make sure that there's room for a transfer station or processing, et cetera, that might not happen for 10 or 20 years, because maybe we'll be processing the landfill in Nantucket, and maybe it'll be, maybe we'll be digging that out and processing that in some manner now with the technology that's available. But I think that it would be short-sighted to not have that figured out now that we're doing it. I did not vote for the hunting license, and I specifically did not vote for that because this work had not been done. And I knew that we were looking for this, for these, and it's not that I don't support the hunters. I think they're going to be fighting with the neighbors to put it inside anyway. I think that's going to go on. I might be wrong, but I think that this is, so if that continues, who knows where we'll be 3 years, 5 years from now. But I think this is, we should be thinking about it. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else? Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the button. All right. Well, yeah. Oh, wow. We have a lot of work and thinking to do about this. We have discounts of money, inflation. The probability of flooding is still a model. We don't know when and how. I'm not ready to support any of these options here. I think we need some more work.
I don't think we're being asked to support them tonight. I think it's general questions.
No.
Comments for people to be considering to improve what we've got so far.
I agree with you, Matt, but I'm not sure. You seem to have an option. I'm not ready for that. We have more data, more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Are you accepting any comment?
Yes.
Curtis Barnes, as a water commissioner.
Curtis, can you pull the?
I keep trying. Better?
Thank you.
As a water commissioner, I want to emphasize the importance of protecting the aquifer, which is why the Delta area, in my opinion, doesn't really work. And I was curious with the access road, I don't hear anyone talking about me going to the dump to take my trash and all that. Where's that going to be? Is that in this plan, or is that not in the plan at all?
This plan does not include the landfill or the transfer station. This is
So
the
have
Department
we-
of Public Works, Department of Public Works facility.
Okay, but in that context, with the flood map and all the rest, are we going to leave everything out on Nantucket Road that's there now? I mean, is it a package or is it a part of a package?
Okay. Is that a question you'd like answered? I think Libby has.
This is not a package right now. The relocation of the solid waste facility, excluding the DPW operation, is a decades-long process. We are in no way ready to move the MRF, the transfer station, and any of those other large facilities anywhere else at this time. Should they be reviewed for relocation? Sure. But the DPW operation is of a critical need and cannot wait another 30 years or more to be relocated and rebuilt.
My other comment is I don't think you should be paying a lease money in perpetuity to the airport. So I certainly would be more in favor of this particular site. Thank you.
Yeah, and to clarify real quick, my comments on the waste section of this is I don't envision it needs to be moved now, but we need to have enough space set aside somewhere when the day comes to move it. And that's why I'm harping on that, because I don't know what we're going to do if we don't. The water, like Vince likes to say, the water is coming, whether we want to believe the studies or not, it's on the way. So we can, I think it's important to look long-term. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Noah?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Noah Carberg, Airport Manager. Very briefly, I wanted to thank the town manager. She's been in contact with the airport. She's kept us in the loop on the evaluation of these parcels. One reminder that I always like to bring up, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record to anyone. This land, the Delta Fields, it's called the Delta Fields, and it surprises a lot of people. It was a gift from Delta Airlines historically, with the balance made up by an FAA AIP grant. So there are unfortunately, a number of strings attached to this land, dealing even with our sponsor, with the town, related to having to get a lease rate, having that lease rate needing to be a certain amount. Just for the purpose of continuing this conversation, I've gone ahead and I've ordered a second appraisal of the property so we can get an updated fair market value and continue working with the town manager and town finance. So you have the most updated numbers. I don't want to speak on behalf of the commission. I'm not here to do that, but I believe we're going to have a follow-up presentation if it advances, and the commission will also discuss and opine as well. I look forward to sharing that information and, helping to do what we can for the board to make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah.
Madam Chair, I'm Steve Holgate, President of the Hunting Association. Wasn't sure it was going to be open for public comment, but since it is, I'd like to just mention that we were in talks with the town on these options. Obviously, our first choice would be to choose one of the other sites and let us continue with the current design of the shooting range. As was mentioned, we've been at this for 20 years and we've been overcoming a lot of challenges. We spent $1 million or more, or $500,000, excuse me, more on all the permitting and legal fights. And this is a very fitting site for a shooting activity on the island. We're trying to get that shooting activity out of the moors, out of the woods, out of the, have it in a nice, safe place where it could be cleaned up and kept controlled. And looking at this concept, we do see a way that this could work as a shared site. There are some other questions that still need to be answered, obviously, and some were mentioned tonight. So we will continue to work with the town to see if a shared site can be ironed out. But again, that's not our first option. And another thing just to keep in mind too, on the Nantucket Road site, I would think that the raising of the Nantucket Road might still need to happen, whether you choose that site or not. The pedestrians, residents have to still access the village of Nantucket. So I would think that expense would still be a town expense, just not part of this project. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further.
I think Art wants to.
Oh, Art. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to add on for the record, I'm Arthur Gasparo, the chairman of the Airport Commission. I apologize for not being here earlier for the interviews. My son had a tennis game. I am happy to report that the Whalers prevailed in their playoff game. And again, thank you for considering me. I wanted to just add quickly that, the airport absolutely wants to be cooperative with the town. And, in terms of, a way to make things work, and want this to come across in any way as, this is a way for the airport to essentially get revenue out of the town. I actually see it quite the opposite, that this is, as the enterprise fund, one of my goals has been to be self-reliant at the airport, to stay in the black and to, not have to rely on the town. And, with the changes in the fleet mix, other things going on at the airport, the land leases really are a significant source of revenue. And these particular parcels represent, going forward, a real significant opportunity for the airport to continue to use land leases to remain self-sufficient. And in the case of whether that, rent is coming from the town, or when the town's considering all of this, it actually could be coming from the private sector and from a third party, and then, essentially not be a burden on one way or another of the taxpayer, one way to look at it. The cost escalation in terms of, the number that was used is required by the FAA. I did look into that and wanted to be sure that, any arrangement such as this is going to be very closely looked at in terms of what rates, are worked out with the municipality by the FAA. And I just wanted you to sort of be aware of how stringent they really are on this. And then if I could just quickly sort of shift hats as a local engineer and a surveyor, someone who deals with elevation certificates, floodplain mapping, wetland permitting. I would really hope we could have a real good look at the Nantucket site. I think that I understand planning for coastal resiliency costs that go along with that. But I also would like to respectfully remind you that, a 100-year floodplain is a 1% chance of that flood happening in any given year. So you're projecting out that elevation out to 2070. And, there may be a meet in the middle solution, if you will, where, as Mr. Holgate just referenced, I mean, the Nantucket Road is going to have to come up that work, much like Pulpus Road. But the overall site, maybe it doesn't have to come all the way up to elevation 14. At that point, Union Street is 10 to 12 also. I mean, all of town is sort of flooded to that point. And I agree that it's coming, but I think that there might be some alternatives to look at, considering that, it doesn't mean that map that was in blue, that in 2070, that site is sort of unusable and completely underwater. It's a 1% chance of a flood. So taking all of those things into consideration, I know there's a lot to sort of chew on here, but I wanted to offer that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick, it's a 1 in 100. It's a 1 in 4 chance of it happening over 30 years, which is the typical length of a mortgage. So it's interesting. There's ways to present numbers. And I only know this because I just forwarded this to Vince today. There's a way to present this that, 1 in 100 sounds like it'll never happen. If it's your house, 1 in 4 over the course of your mortgage. Ooh, that's a little bit different. And so I think it's important. How you present the numbers is, it kind of helps, how we present it is how we interpret it. And I think it's important for us to interpret that it's going to happen out there, 1 in 4 over the course of a mortgage lifetime.
So my sense is that this isn't going to be resolved tonight, and that there's a lot more conversation to be had.
Exactly,
So,
but I'm
yeah.
just making it clear to us that that's, there are ways to present it that's give you one way. There's ways to present it another way. The
Yep.
facts are the facts, so thank you.
So I think I'm going to close this item for now and leave it for. Oh, okay. Yep. Nope, hands down.
Campbell, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yes, so I've been following this discussion and pretty interested in it. I guess just from a public standpoint for the DPW, I would support the Shadbush cooperative property aspect. I think one, because it's already in the CI district, which I think would be most beneficial to keep that sort of thing in that area, commercial industrial. I'm also wondering though, is this a place that could, is the Shadbush property somewhere that futuristically speaking could utilize, I don't know if it's gasification will be the future, but I mean, a way to utilize our massive waste stream in some way that wouldn't bring up all of the issues that the Nantucket site brings up as far as, you know, views and like that. I also like that the land is not leased. That the whole, you know, because you're gonna, just like our taxes are gonna be reassessed, right? So you're gonna start at some number and then you're gonna either go up or down from there. So sort of like an adjustable mortgage, which I'm really not in favor of either, just because you don't know which direction things are going. But I guess my main question is futuristically for the landfill transfer station portion of this, is this a site that could facilitate that?
So Campbell, that's for a different conversation. So I think, thank you for your input, and you can look for that conversation about the future of the landfill to come. So I'm going to move on from this item to a review of the November 7th, 2023 special town meeting timeline.
I just wanted to review the timeline with the board and the public tonight, because we are starting to get real with short-term rental work group proposals. And that was the purpose for the special town meeting, which is scheduled for November 7th. That group is coming to your meeting next week. It's not actually on the timeline it comes because it came up later, but they are coming next week, June 14th. To give an update of where they are with their proposals and gain any input from the board. The warrant is open for non-town articles until Wednesday, June 21st at 4 p.m. Those then get processed through the normal procedure of town council review, planning board, FinCom. The board will then review any potential warrant articles at its meeting on the 28th. That's going to be a long meeting that night. Wednesday, the 5th. Potential additional review, public hearing on citizen warrant articles, if any, by the FinCom on July 6th. More discussion by the board about warrant articles on the 12th. The short-term rental work group proposed final articles are hopefully due for review at your meeting on the 12th. You will then review them again the following week, and the work group will review them with you. Their articles anyway, and there may be others for you all to review. We do have some potential possible articles to go over with you, but we are trying to be mindful of what goes on the warrant, because we have one night for this with space at the school, and it's really critical, and the vendor for e-voting and all of that. So it's really critical that we don't load up the warrant with non-short-term rental items. Additional time if needed for the work group, depending on what feedback it gets from the select board and the planning board. The last couple of weeks of July into August, the board is scheduled to adopt the warrant on August 16th. And then pretty much all the usual process follows after that, with FinCom review, planning board, all hearings, discussions, preparation of the warrant document, and getting it printed, mailed, all of that, all culminating in special town meeting on Tuesday, November 7th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Okay, I have a question. So the last chance, if the select board wanted to make an amendment to, make an amendment to an article, change, put an article in. The last chance we would have to do that would be August. What was it, Wednesday, July 19th?
16th.
Oh, 16th, okay.
Yeah.
So August 16th, okay.
That's when you're adopting the warrant.
Right, and the reason I'm asking that is I think they're getting, the short-term rental work group is getting there, but I still think that there's a sort of an unclarity of the zoning, that I think there was a misconception that you couldn't do the regulations through zoning. I think you can, and I think that that may be necessary to get a 2/3 vote and get this thing to pass. And I would, if they bring an article that doesn't do it through zoning and does it through regulation and puts a yes in the use chart on all the zoning, then I think that it may be smart for us to put an article that puts it through the zoning portion so that there is an option if it is voted down. I think there's a lot of good meat on the bone that the short-term rental work group has done, but I still think there's rationale and reasons to do it for with a 2/3 vote. And I think, we can talk about that further. I know, and it was interesting. I listened to the show. I've tried to watch the last couple of short-term rental work groups, and it was raised at that group as well. And so I think that there's still, I think they're still working on some pretty major aspects. And I think the more they have worked on it, the more it has kind of come into clarity of what they're trying to do has improved. And so I'm hopeful that that'll be worked out, and it won't be up to us. But once it lands in our lap, if there's changes that need to be made, how do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that's, sort of supportive and builds on what has been the good work that has been done to ensure that we have something that the majority of the people can vote. So that's why I was asking that question. I want to make sure that we and the town has that opportunity. If we went to town meeting with something like that, it might be ruled out of the scope if it wasn't allowed. And so then we'd have a choice to vote for what was presented, not in the zoning, or we would have to vote it down. And so I think we should make sure that we sort of think things, some of those things through. And that's hard to do when you're working hard at just getting the thing done. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Libby. Select board reports and comments.
I'm talked out. I had something, but
Malcolm or? Okay, I have a couple of things. I wanted to report that the Affordable Housing Trust RFP for the Amelia Drive property has been out, and we had a site walk with potential respondents, and 4 different groups came, which was very encouraging. Some local, some from off island. And so it was a really good group. And the other thing I wanted to say was I was in Boston again yesterday with Tucker and Brian Sullivan and Meg Trudell at a transfer fee advocacy event at the State House. And we continue to make connections, build momentum. And this was about the statewide enabling legislation, not our specific home rule petition. And it's always interesting, the surprise that people's faces when they say, you came all the way from Nantucket for this. And so effort counts with some people up there. I think Tom can probably tell you from his experience. So we keep working at it, and we'll just keep working at it till we cross the finish line.
I remembered what it was. A thank you to the land bank for renting for the lifeguard housing. I forgot to mention that when we did the contracts earlier, but that was a shout out and a thank you to the land bank. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Just a quick comment on the Memorial Day services were very moving, and what a lot of work that they all put in to honor the fallen. The service was fantastic. The parade was community, the best in Nantucket, and it was a beautiful day.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody ready to go?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Malcolm McNabb.
Yes.
Don Holgate.
Yes.
Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Aye.
Matt Fee, and I vote aye. Thanks, everybody.